calling until you reach a live person. Next up on item 5 is the approval of minutes. We have 3 sets of minutes here to approve, and I'll ask for Ward 1, Ward 2 to consider those and vote.
Councillor Hanmer makes the motion to approve our minutes.
And votes in the affirmative, I bet.
And I vote in favor.
Councillor Bodley seconds the motion and votes in favor as well.
Councillor Veith in favor.
Councillor Freeman in favor.
Councillor Vasic in favor.
Councillor Henry in favor.
Councillor Bonagor in favor.
And the mayor's in favor too. That is unanimous. We have no independent delegations here today. We move to the consent motion, which consists of 4 things: the first quarter health and safety report, the health and safety policy statement, change to the fence variance committee, and item D, a proposed demolition of residential dwellings, 550 Roy Schmidt Road, 558 Conservation Drive, by Activa Holdings. Am I hearing any request to remove any from the consent for discussion next?
Councillor Veith. Oops, sorry.
Oh, Councillor Veith, go ahead.
I just have
Which
the Roy Schmidt, just a couple comments on that one.
Oh, yeah, we'll remove it and we'll go with items A, B, and C because I'm hearing nobody further. And while I have you on the line, if I could ask the Ward 3 and 4 councillors to move the motion for the consent A, B, and C, removing the demolition one for comment next.
It's Councillor Bonagor here. I have one small question regarding this item C.
Okay, we'll remove that one as well. And so I'll ask for Ward 3. Is there anything else to be removed? Hearing none, we're moving consent motion items A and B, which are the health and safety oriented ones, to Councillor Veith and Freeman.
I move those 2 items and I vote in favor.
Thank you.
This is Councillor Freeman. I second the motion and vote in favor.
Councillor Vasic in favor.
Councillor Henry in favor.
Councillor Bonagor in favor.
Councillor Hanmer in favor.
Councillor Bodley in favor.
And the mayor's in favor too. That's unanimous. Going on to items removed from consent motion. First up is item C, which is the fence variance committee. Over to you, Councillor Bonagor, for a question or comment.
This is Councillor Bonagor. No, I just had one question, a very quick one for staff. I was just wondering when I assume this was run by the members of the Committee of Adjustment, and what did they make of this proposal?
Through the chair to Councillor Bonagor, yes, actually the director did approach each member of the Committee of Adjustment, and they were quite fine with the change. To date, in the last 5 years, we've had approximately 1 hearing per year, so it is not a great additional burden.
Great, thank you. I just wanted to check on that. Thank you.
And thank you. And with that, I think we'll go with
Jimmy.
where we're doing forward. Let's go with Ward 5 and 6 for the fence variance committee.
Sorry about that. Councillor Vasic, I move and I'm in favor.
Thank you.
Councillor Henry second and in favor.
Councillor Bonagor in favor.
Councillor Hanmer in favor.
Councillor Bodley in favor.
Councillor Veith in favor.
Councillor Freeman in favor.
And the mayor's in favor too. That is all approved for the fence variance committee. Item D, proposed demolition of residential dwellings in couple in Ward 3. So we'll go to the Ward 3 councillor for the questions or comments.
Thank you, Mayor. Through you, just a couple things. I rode my bike up there on the weekend just to check it out. And one thing I would really like to see is, and I noticed the sign is down, but if the name of the road could be spared or kept the same, Roy Schmidt Road. I know a few years ago I had a phone call from a descendant of Mr. Schmidt, and just asking me about that. So in his honor, and I did Google Roy Schmidt, and he's from Urbsville area, and so if the developer could take that into consideration. And the other thing I was thinking when I rode up there, and Councillor Bonagor brought this up as well, that the house at 550 Conservation Drive or Roy Schmidt, yes, it's not an old house. It was built in the late 80s, and I know it's all boarded up, it's all overgrown in front, but it's probably not bad structurally. Now, I don't know that, but in the future, I think it would be kind of cool if we could figure out a way to save and integrate houses like that into the neighborhood, into the new neighborhood. I mean, that could even be like a small community center or hub for the neighborhood and perhaps the youth in the neighborhood. And there is another example of that in my ward on Behringer Road, a house that was probably there on a farm, and now it's all around it are new houses on the Thorncrest area. So anyway, I don't want to not get in the way of this demolition. I just was thinking about that on the weekend, that maybe we can repurpose some of these in the future, and I mean, it's good for the environment, keeps them out of the landfill, all those kind of things. So yeah, just my comments, and happy to move if it's appropriate, this item, and vote in favor.
Absolutely. So Mr. Cotter's on the line. He will take notes of those two commentaries with respect to the developer and future developments and the road naming. So we'll go with Ward 3, Ward 4, moved by Ward 3 over to Ward 4.
This is Councillor Freeman. I second the motion and vote in favor.
Councillor Vassic in favor.
Councillor Henry in favor.
Councillor Bonagor, I'm opposed.
Councillor Hanmer in favor.
Councillor Bodley in favor.
And the mayor's in favor too. That carries 7-1 with the one item noted. We are now at item 9, staff reports. Award of tender RFT 20-11 and funding transfer request for the Lincoln Road water main and road widening. Report prepared by Chris Stedman, and I think that's in Councillor Vassic's ward. Any questions? Hearing none, I will look to Councillor Vassic, Councillor Henry. Move.
Yeah, I move and just say that this is really important. There's been water main breaks, so it's both structurally important and also it's an opportunity to have bike lanes extending, so it's good for active transportation on Lincoln to connect with Weber, and then also once university starts getting reconstructed. So I'm happy to move and vote in favor.
Councillor Henry seconds and votes in favor.
Councillor Bonagor in favor.
Councillor Hanmer in favor.
Councillor Bodley in favor.
Councillor Veith in favor.
Councillor Freeman in favor.
And the mayor's in favor. That carries unanimously. Item B, the award of tender RFP 20-03, Laurendale Street reconstruction and water main looping. A report prepared by Caroline Amiot. Do I have any questions? Hearing none.
Sorry, I can't. Sorry, Mayor. I do have some comments. I just couldn't type fast enough.
Okay, and I do see Councillor Bodley has one too. So let's let Councillor Bodley go first, and we'll let the ward councillor clean up. Councillor Bodley.
Yes, thank you. Just a question regarding the comments that sidewalks were not warranted on this street as part of the reconstruction. And just from my knowledge, I'd just like to get an understanding of why sidewalks were not warranted on the street, I guess.
Over to Caroline, I think. One moment, please. I do have another list of who's. Dan. Dan is going to take this.
Dan here. Yep. Can you hear me?
Go ahead, Dan. Yeah, go ahead, Dan.
All right. Thanks. Good morning, all, and through you, Mayor. Councillor Bodley, the sidewalk policy sets out some threshold criteria, I guess, based on different classes of roads. So for cul-de-sacs, generally, sidewalks are not required unless they have a walkway connection or would connect to a school road, for example. And then when you get into local roads, it also depends on the amount of traffic that's on the street. But in this case, being a cul-de-sac, per the policy, sidewalks are not required.
Excellent. Thank you for the clarification.
Thank you, Councillor Bodley. Over to Councillor Freeman.
Thank you, through you, Mayor Jaworski. I'm happy to move this motion and vote in favor of it. The citizens on Lorndale are really looking forward to having this repair done. I think they've had an extraordinary, I think it's been crazy in the last few years. They've had 2 or 3 water main breaks every year. So this is very, very helpful. And I know that the citizens are looking forward to it. I just wanted to kind of remind staff that the citizens are hoping there might be some consideration to being able to drive through the pumping station at the end of Lorndale between Lorndale and Denholm at some times during the construction to help aid access to some of the homes that are at the lower end of the street. But if it is the intention of staff to try to keep the street open to allow some passage of traffic, that's great too. And as a reminder, on Lorndale, when we tried that, we had a huge excavation get undermined by a big rainstorm. So hopefully we'll be able to avoid those things and have an uneventful construction of this reconstruction. But thank you. I wanted to thank staff too for prioritizing this, because the number of water main breaks were becoming extraordinary for the citizens.
Thank you for the commentary for staff, Councillor Freeman. So moved by Councillor Freeman. Next up would be Councillor Vasic, if she would choose to second and vote.
I would love to second fixing water main breaks, and I vote in favor.
Councillor Henry in favor.
Councillor Bonagor in favor.
Councillor Hanmer in favor.
Councillor Bodley in favor.
Councillor Veith in favor.
And the mayor's in favor too. That carries unanimously for Lorndale. Just a reminder, later on in the, program, later on in the council meeting, we will have a formal public meeting. If you would like to speak at the public planning meeting later today, please call the clerk's office at 519-747-8549 to be added to the list of delegations. If you hear a voicemail message, please hang up. Keep calling until you reach a live person. We are now at item 9C, the 2019 year-end capital report prepared by Kim Rieger. Do I have any questions for staff? Seeing none, I have a few finance items going up here, so I'll go to the finance chair, Henry, and then Councillor Bonagor to consider moving.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll move this item and vote in favor of it, and I'll just add as a comment of thanks to finance staff for preparing these capital reports. It provides us good line of sight insight at a high level to what's going on with our capital plan and program, as well as just the sheer number of projects that our very dedicated and professional staff have on their plate to move at any given time. And we appreciate all of the hard work that they do to be able to keep the city moving and rebuilding successfully.
Councillor Bonagor, I second the motion and Councillor Henry's comments, and I vote in favour.
Councillor Hanmer, I too vote in favor, and great thanks to the staff for all your work.
Councillor Bodley in favor.
Councillor Veith in favor.
Councillor Freeman in favor.
Councillor Vasic in favor.
And the mayor's in favor too. That carries unanimously. Item 9D, another finance report, 2019 investment reporting. Do we have any questions on that? Seeing none, again, I will go to the finance chair and then skip forward to Ward 1 for moving and seconding.
Councillor Henry here, move the motion and vote in favor.
Councillor Hanmer, I second the motion and vote in favor.
Councillor Bodley in favor.
Councillor Veith in favor.
Councillor Freeman in favor.
Councillor Vasic in favor.
Councillor Bonagor in favour.
And the mayor's in favor too. That carries unanimously. Item 9E, another finance report. This one, the financial impact of COVID-19 update report number 3, prepared by Brad Witzel. Do we have any questions from council? And I would be looking to go to the finance chair again. Councillor Bonagor has a comment. Go ahead, Councillor Bonagor.
Actually, no. Please strike that. This is Councillor Bonagor, and I have a comment for something coming later in the package.
Okay, no problem. I will go to the finance chair and then over to Ward 2.
This Councillor Henry, happy to move this report and vote in favor of it. And I'd add as a comment, I appreciate all of staff's work to stay on top of the challenges that we've been facing in terms of revenue shortfall, in terms of managing expenses and keeping us in the community up to date on the ongoing impacts of COVID-19. Certainly, it is appearing that we'll be in a position to manage the 2020 shortfall and in a reasonable way, but 2021 hopefully will be a much better year, since this year will drain our easy ability to manage that because of years of fiscal prudence. So appreciate all the work that staff have done to stay on top of this and to keep us up to date.
And I'll look to Councillor Bodley to second that.
Sorry, my apologies. Councillor Bodley, yes, I second the motion and I am in favor of it as well.
Thank you. We'll go to Councillor Veith and keep going around. Thank you.
I vote in favor.
Councillor Freeman in favor.
Councillor Vasic in favor.
Councillor Bonagor in favour.
Councillor Hanmer in favor.
And the mayor's in favor too. This report is so important with respect to helping the federal and provincial governments understand the needs of municipalities, and there's still some thoughts that maybe municipalities should start running deficits. We're unanimously against that concept. It just doesn't work. There's no way to make it back since we don't get a taste of economic recovery revenues. All those go to the federal and provincial governments, and we continue to make progress in this. So thank you for the staff report. This will be helpful in showing to the federal and provincial governments that we're doing good things to help our businesses recover, like we did with the uptown parking permit fees and other initiatives that we've put in place. And it's just so important that we help our communities, and but we will need help from the federal and provincial governments going forward for 2020. Item F, CAO procurement summary or award summary, April-May 2020, prepared by Jason Wilhelm. Do I have any questions from council? And I see I have one from Councillor Henry for Tim. Go ahead, Councillor Henry.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Tim, for providing the CAO Procurement Award summary report. I know that's what I asked for when we first had the delegation bylaw approved on these. So I appreciate the update. I just wanted to confirm what I think I'm reading in terms of the request for the extension, which is that because we have regular council meetings coming up over the summer, staff are primarily being directed to send any reports normally requiring council approval to council, but this is a more standard kind of summer approach to allow you the flexibility to quickly respond to these things. It's not that we anticipate that many matters will go through you because there will be 2 council meetings, but that this allows the flexibility to move quickly when that's required on projects.
Through you, Mayor Jaworski, to Councillor Henry. That is correct, Councillor. Our intent across the city will be to, wherever possible, hit the scheduled council meetings in July and August. But we do anticipate there'll be, maybe the odd tender that does require approval outside of those council meetings, and for expeditious approval and taking advantage of the construction season, we felt that having that ability to do the awards by the CAO will just keep those projects moving forward in a smooth fashion. Back to you, Mayor.
Thank you very much, both. I had this on my list for Ward 3 and Ward 4 to consider moving and voting for.
Councillor Veith here. I move this motion and I vote in favor of it with thanks to staff and to our chair of finance for all his oversight on all this. Thanks.
Councillor Freeman, I second the motion and also vote in favor. Thank you.
Councillor Vasic in favor.
Councillor Henry in favor.
Councillor Bonagor in favor.
Councillor Hanmer in favor.
Councillor Bodley in favor.
And the mayor's in favor too. That passes unanimously. Thank you all for that. Item G, the Region of Waterloo and City of Waterloo Parkade Agreement Extension. And a report prepared by Christine Tetman. Do we have any questions on this one before I go to the ward councillor? Seeing and hearing none, I will look for Ward 7, then Ward 1 to consider this one. Oh, hold on. I have a question from Councillor Vasic. Go ahead, Councillor Vasic.
Sorry about that. Thank you. Yeah, so there's been lots of extensions. So I'm just curious if people are feeling pretty confident that there will be a plan within the next year for extending it by 1 year, or if another request will come back to extend it again.
I'm really hoping this is the end of it, but we'll go to Mr. McFadden to hear more.
Thank you. Yes, our expectation is that this will be final extension. The region has telegraphed us generally kind of what they want to do, and so this just gives us time to make sure that we can follow the details of that. That's our firm expectation.
Okay, I think we had very much difficulty hearing that, Justin. I'm wondering if you could try something else. But I think in general, you said that this is one thing we're trying to finish off.
Yeah, that's what I.
Yeah, sorry, I can. Does this sound a little bit better?
Yes, thank you.
Oh yeah, you're perfect.
Okay.
Now.
Okay, great. Yes, so the expectation is that this will be the last extension. The region has telegraphed to us generally what their desires are with respect to the parkade, and so this will give us just give us time mutually to sort out all of the details of that of the final agreement. But our firm expectation is that this will be the last one.
Great, thank you so much, Justin.
Yeah, thank you. And so we'll go to the Ward 7, Ward 1 to consider moving and seconding.
This is Councillor Bonagor. I move the motion and vote in favour.
Councillor Hanmer, I'm happy to second the motion, and I too vote in favor.
Councillor Bodley in favor.
Councillor Veith in favor.
Councillor Freeman in favor.
Councillor Vasek in favor.
Councillor Henry in favor.
And the mayor's in favor too. That carries unanimously. Moving on to item G, Parks Infrastructure Replacement and Rehabilitation Needs 2020 to 2022 Implementation Plan, prepared by several of our staff. Do I have any questions for staff on this from council? Hearing none. I know Councillor Bodley needed some rehabilitation for a hockey injury, so maybe we'll go with Councillor Bodley, Councillor Veith, consider this one. And we have Councillor Henry has a comment first. Let's go with that, Councillor Henry.
Thank you, Mayor. I just thought I would comment as this is the first of several reports, two on this meeting that are coming back to council as a result of the budget decisions council made to begin making significant reinvestments in our infrastructure to make sure that it is renewed for this and subsequent generations so we can all continue to enjoy a high quality of life in our city as our city grows and ages. And I think this is a fantastic plan from our Parks Department to be able to start making down payments on that. Playgrounds are near and dear to the hearts of so many people around the city. We look forward to the day when we can be back on them. And this is a plan that helps make sure more of them will be in better condition faster. And so I really appreciate park staff's attention to all of this.
Thank you. Very well said. We'll go to Ward 2, Ward 3.
Councillor Bodley, understanding the importance of rehabilitating vis-a-vis my ankle injury that Mayor Jaworski highlighted, will move the motion and vote in favor of it.
Councillor Veith here. I second the motion and vote in favor.
Councillor Freeman in favor.
Councillor Vasek in favor.
Councillor Henry in favor.
Councillor Bonagor in favor.
Councillor Hanmer in favor.
And the mayor is in favor too. Thank you all very much for that. And thanks to staff for the long-term plan, or medium-term plan. Item I, Transportation Infrastructure Replacement and Rehabilitation Needs 2020 to 2022 Implementation Plan. Do we have any questions for staff? Hearing none, I will look to, let's see, Councillor Freeman. And
Councillor Henry said he has a comment.
Oh, okay. I'm just seeing that now. Councillor Henry, go ahead.
And to save you some time, I'll be happy to move this motion and vote in favor of it as well. So I'm only on the mic once. Again, subsequent further to my last comments, thank you to transportation staff for the detailed plan on this. I think citizens, residents across the city know that our roads are not in the shape that they used to be, and council knows that they are not getting better. And the reinvestments that we're starting to make will allow us to better maintain the quality of the infrastructure that people rely on around the city, including how they move around the city, which we'll be talking about later today as well. Folks should know that this will allow several road projects to move forward and be advanced by an average of 2 years, enabling 9 road reconstruction projects that we weren't able to get to in the next 10 years to come forward, so that we'll actually be able to advance significant construction. And that's just with the down payments that this council has made in this council term to increase the base funding for transportation. I know I am particularly enthused about the the ability of Albert Street between Columbia and Weber to receive a comprehensive resurfacing within our existing plan, because there's new money coming in to do more across the city. It'll allow us to do these things in a more comprehensive way. And in the case of Albert Street, allow us to finally rebalance that roadway and that transportation corridor in a way that will work for all citizens. I look forward to the design process for that beginning next year and construction in 2022. Once we've learned more from the pilot project of separated lanes that the region's running nearby, this will be an absolutely vital connection through a part of my ward and adjacent to Councillor Veith's ward, where folks do need affordable and safe options to get around through active transportation on an equity basis and really in that case on a moral basis for making sure everybody in the city is able to get where they need to go. So this is going to be a very important connection, and I'm glad that Council's investments in infrastructure are allowing things like this to proceed and to proceed much faster than they otherwise would.
Thank you, Councillor Henry. Having cycled Albert Street, I can completely say that you must keep your eyes on the road. And by that I mean you keep your eyes on that asphalt, because you have to zig and zag a bit. So that's certainly an important one. And you think about Albert Street in some places being 4 lanes, just like Highway 85. There's probably room for improvement there. I do know that Councillor, you want to move this, and Councillor Bonagor wants to give comments on this. So I'll come back to you, Councillor Henry, to move and vote. Councillor Bonagor.
Thank you, Mayor. I just also wanted to thank staff for their hard work on this. It has brought forward some road projects in Ward 7 in Uptown that I think residents will be really grateful for that. I think every one of us could say that about a project in our ward. So I do appreciate the hard work and the long-term planning that's been put into this.
Wonderful, thank you. We'll go to Ward 6, Ward 7, please.
Councillor Henry, move the motion and vote in favour.
Councillor Bonagor here, I second the motion and vote in favour.
Councillor Hanmer, I am in favour.
Councillor Bodley in favour.
Councillor Veith in favour.
Councillor Freeman in favour.
Councillor Vasic in favour.
And I am in favor too. This will be a major improvement for our city. Thank you very much. Next up is, and that carries unanimously. Item J, the traffic and parking bylaw amendments for active transportation initiatives. A report prepared by Christine Keeler's team, Christine Keeler and team. We have a registered delegation, so we will hear from Mike Gillespie. Welcome to the call.
Good morning. Thank you very much. So thanks for your time. My name is Mike Gillespie. For the last 2 years, we've moved uptown Waterloo. We live on 67 William Street West, which is near the corner of William and Euclid. And I'm here to speak in support of the reduction of the speed limit on William. So we're near the three-way stop at William and Euclid, not far from Park Street intersection as well. Love living uptown and everything that it brings. The only real downside I tell anybody about is the traffic on William Street, both, I suppose, the quantity, but also the speed of vehicles, both cars and trucks driving on the street, which, two concerns there, most importantly, safety issues, but also, there's noise issues and quality of life issues that come with that as well. It seems to me there's 2 reasons for the speeders that we see along our stretch of William. One would be the fairly straight road, and the other one would be there's no parking along the street, so it's pretty much wide open for people. And unfortunately, too many people take advantage of that. So 2 impacts, as I said, first on safety. It's a busy road with quantity of traffic, and we've seen it increase over time. Obviously, COVID has had an impact of probably slowing in terms of numbers down a little bit right now, but certainly, generally speaking, it's a busy road. And again, with the development that's happened uptown, it seems to me there's just more vehicles on it, including large trucks. You need to be careful when you're backing out. I can't assume that someone's driving the speed limit as I try to estimate whether I can pull out safely, and so I have to wait longer, and I do that. But I do worry about the potential for accidents because of that. We have next door neighbors who have kids that will sometimes play on the front yard, and certainly we're seeing more and more foot traffic along our sidewalk these days, and cyclists as well. It's great to see actually all the people out and about, but there's a lot of pedestrians on this relatively busy road. As I mentioned, we live quite close, and ever since I've been working from home, I really see it. We're quite close to the three-way stop at Euclid, and I see a lot of people either rolling through, driving through without even slowing down, so that's definitely an issue. You kind of have to be very aware when you're walking across at Euclid because of the fact that you can't necessarily count on people obeying that stop sign. I think that may be a visibility issue, but then just also speaks to the speed that people take along William. So in summary, on the safety side, I worry about cars, let's say, getting into accidents, but particularly about all the people in our neighborhood that are potentially at risk because of the speed that we're seeing. On the noise side, because of the fact that the speed issues, we do see a fair number of people that treat our part of William as a bit of a racetrack. There's a lot of gunning of engines, partially because of the stop sign being so close and the fact that we are up on a bit of a hill. So particularly when they're heading towards Westmount, they really let it out, and that's a big annoyance for me. Fairly not unusual to hear screeching of tires near the stop sign because of, again, people coming to the realization that they've got that stop sign a little late and given the speed that they've got. So I would say in summary, I support lowering the speed limit on William in order to make it less likely that people will ignore that stop sign, encourage people not to essentially gun their engines coming out of the stop sign, and then just minimize the risk for everybody who's on the road, my family included. As an aside, I'd also encourage enforcement and perhaps, let's say more visible signage to make sure that people are driving and aware of the rules of the road. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mike. I'm not sure I have any questions for you at this point, but you can listen to our further discussions. Normally in council chambers, we would, you would hang around, you'd listen in, and then we'd wave to you on the way out. So this will be my waving to you on the way out, even though you'll still stay on here. I think we certainly our staff will take note of what you mentioned about the three-way stop, roll through, and the noise associated with the speeders in there and better enforcement. Just checking here. I don't see anything further for you, Mike, so I'll ask the clerk to put you on mute so you continue to listen in, and thank you very much for being part of the process here and supportive of it. So next up, we don't have any further allegations, but I do have sets of questions. The ward councillor, do you want to go first or last?
Well, this affects every ward, so I'm happy to go whenever you want me to go.
Oh, okay. Okay, I thought you want, in case you wanted to speak directly on that while it's fresh. So in order, I have Councillor Hanmer, Bonagor, Freeman, and Bodley. Please go ahead.
Thank you. This is through you, Mayor. Thank you to the staff for putting so quickly this report together for us, and the real focus on improving the safety within many of our city streets. My questions and comments are specifically around the 40-kilometer-per-hour streets in Westville in particular. I think as many can appreciate, as our council reports were made available, I did get lots of comments and suggestions and questions over the weekend. And I would say in the Westville area, for the most part, there is support for reducing the speed limit, as there have been numerous attempts, as staff are aware, to do calming measures within that particular neighborhood area. Equally, though, are numbers of concerns regarding enforcement. The stop signs have been put in place and numerous other calming measures, but enforcement seems to be the big issue and challenge. So my question is really around that in particular, and what are we going to be doing, or what measures have been taken to look at the enforcement of the new of the change to the speed limit?
And I think Jenny Setterfield is on the line to handle some questions. Welcome, Jenny.
Thank you. Welcome. Through you, Mayor Jaworski, to Councillor Hanmer. We are going to be sending all of this information and working directly with WRPS just to help us with the enforcement. They will be partners with us. We also we're also going to be just monitoring on ourselves, putting out the data as well. So the police will be with us in terms of enforcement.
Okay, thank you. I think the residents for sure, and I won't speak for East Bridge, but certainly within Westvale would be very appreciative of measures that are taken to enforce the speed limit. My second question is regarding previous data, and in the report you talk about there being previous data available so that we can do a comparison of what differences have been made. And this can be taken offline too. I'd appreciate an opportunity to take a look at that data and have access to it. I'm getting a lot of questions about it. And then my final question is just regarding choosing the speed limit, 40 versus 30 versus any other number at this point. And I know there are numerous studies available about what is the best number and what the impact is. So I'm just curious how the 40 was arrived at and some of the rationale.
Through you, Mayor Jaworski, to Councillor Hanmer. The before data, absolutely, staff will send that to council offline and after this meeting for your viewing. The second part is the 40 versus 30. So staff are starting with the 40 kilometer per hour just as part of the pilot, and to see if vehicles will actually travel. We all know that if you put up a sign, they may or may not drive according to the sign. We think that 40 is reasonable for vehicles to drive past schools and parks on other streets that we have selected. So it's not to say that we won't do the 30, but we want to test and try the 40 first.
Through you, Mayor, that just prompts two more questions, Jenny, for you that I meant to ask. We are doing this as a pilot. Can you share with us the timing for the pilot? And then secondly, what's the opportunity and mechanism that residents will have to provide input or feedback on the pilot itself?
So the signs and locates have just been placed on order. We're waiting for all the material to come in. So staff will be installing it as soon as we get the material. So we're hoping within the next month. In terms of how the public, we're going to be going through Engage Waterloo online, and we're working with communications on a public engagement communication plan in order to solicit feedback. So we're actually going to be looking at connecting in with the councillors as well, because you guys have great connections to your constituents. So we will be soliciting feedback mainly online and through other social media media.
Great, and I certainly would be willing to help out in terms of communicating that in any way possible. It is important that we make sure people know in advance why we're doing things, what we're doing, and then have the opportunity to provide the feedback. So Jenny, thank you for that. I'm very pleased to hear it. And back to the Mayor, that's it for me right now.
Thank you, Councillor Hanmer. I have on my list Councillor Bonagor, Freeman, Bodley, Vasek, Veith. Please go ahead.
Thank you. Through you, Mayor Jaworski, this is Councillor Bonagor. I apologise in advance. I have quite a few questions for staff. First of all, though, I'd like to thank Mr. Gillespie for coming before us virtually today. I've been receiving a number of letters from residents, and I'm one of those people who has been walking along William more than I used to. So I can definitely tell you that Mr. Gillespie, you're not alone. A lot of residents on the street are very supportive of this idea. For staff, I have a few questions. So we have more than 10 years of traffic studies and consultation with residents in this neighbourhood, and there are a few slow streets proposed for other parts of Uptown West. I'm just wondering, I'm wondering what behaviours are expected or anticipated on these slow streets, given that there are no specific speed reductions attached. What are we expecting to see, and is there any kind of recourse for residents who live on these streets should they feel the need for some kind of enforcement or assistance?
Through you, Mayor Jaworski, to Councillor Bonagor. There will be large traffic pylons at each intersection, and there will be signs on those that indicate that it is slow streets, that it is shared use. And the intent is that drivers must drive slowly in and around through the cone, and that will initially start them on the street at a lower speed. It's meant to encourage cyclists and pedestrians and drivers all to share a common space. It is something that's new, and again, we're trying it out to see if it works and see how things go. But that is the intent on that.
Okay. Thank you. That is very helpful. I noticed that it's only a few streets in the Uptown West neighbourhood. Is the idea to kind of test how these streets compare to the other streets in the neighbourhood? Is there a reason why we didn't put them on all of the streets?
Yes, that's exactly why.
Okay, thank you. That helps with that one. Next, if I may discuss the proposed summer-long closure of Willis Way. I've been speaking to businesses along that stretch, and I know the BIA has been reaching out. Some businesses are concerned, some are very excited and say it couldn't come soon enough. Two of the common issues that came up were a need to have some kind of short-term pickup parking spots for the stores that are relying on curbside sales, curbside delivery and pickup and that kind of thing. I'm also a little bit concerned about the loss of disabled parking locations on Willis Way. So I'm just wondering if staff can give me any insight on whether there is any plan to put in place some short stay pickup parking spots nearby, and if there is a plan to maybe provide additional disabled parking somewhere else so that we're not reducing the number of disabled parking spots in the core.
Sure, through you, the chair, to you, Councillor. Yes, so we're still working on the design of the actual closure and the details of it. So what I would suggest is that we would definitely talk to the local businesses that will be affected in terms of deliveries and drop-offs, and we can work with them to identify a location that may be reasonable to all. We also can work with them to talk about if they have specific scheduled deliveries, opening it up during a specific hour on a specific day, if that works with them. So that's something that we definitely are working with, and we're fluid through this as well. If there needs to be any changes, we can modify as needed. In terms of the accessible parking, that's that's something we haven't looked at in detail, and that we will definitely take back with us and try and make sure that we can accommodate if needed.
That would be really appreciated. The accessible parking there is some of the few spots that directly abut the sidewalk when you're trying to get to the uptown shops there. The other ones on the other side of the of the store. You have to cross the LRT tracks to get where you need to go. So I would just really appreciate seeing what you come up with for that. But overall, I think it's a wonderful proposal because it takes us closer to what our long-term vision is for that street. And I think it will really meet a need that we're hearing a lot about from the broader community. I have two other more specific things to discuss. There is a street in my ward that I hear from residents about. It's Waterloo Street, running from Moore to the city boundary. It's a very narrow street. It's got curb-faced sidewalks. There are a lot of young children who live on and play on the street, but due to the narrowness of the street and the speeds that cars get up to, it feels very unsafe for the people there. Whether it even feels unsafe for them when they're getting into their own vehicles. It's not just when they're walking and cycling. So I'm wondering if, I'm not sure how to do this. I haven't done it before, but I'd like to provide direction to staff to implement a slow street on that street as well, from Waterloo Street to Moore. Mayor, you may need to guide me on how this process works.
Well, we might go to the commissioner for that with respect to that larger level question. Mr. Rapp, are you there?
Yes, I am. Can you hear me, Mayor Jaworski?
Sounds great.
Okay. Through the chair to Councillor Bonagor, the addition of a slow street merely takes a direction to staff, as no bylaws are attached to such action. So it's easy to add a slow street, such as Waterloo Street, say from Moore to the city limits. That would not be difficult. Just a direction.
If I may put that forward then, because I know that it would be greatly appreciated by all of the residents on that street. And if I could keep you on the line, Commissioner Rapp, there's one other issue that I would like to raise. I noticed there are some issues with stop signs in one street in particular in my ward, and that's Dietz Ave. It's a residential street that goes from Westmount to Erb. It's already used somewhat as a cut through, and there is nothing to stop vehicles on that stretch. Given the regional proposal to potentially limit traffic on Westmount and Erb, I have concerns that cut through traffic on that street in particular could be exacerbated. So I'm wondering if staff could take a particular look at that road, that stretch of road, to ascertain where it would be best to place a stop sign. There are two intersections that could be candidates. There's Dietz and Lourdes and Dietz and Dawson. I'd be looking for staff for input on which would be better, but I would, given the broader context that we have right now, I would really like to see some action on that street. So again, Mr. Commissioner Rapp, if you could kind of guide me on how we can move forward there, that would be greatly appreciated.
Certainly through the chair to Councillor Bonagor. Again, for the stop signs, it does require a bylaw consideration by our council versus the slow streets. If council, and I'm taking really by what you've said that you're interested in giving direction, you can give direction to council or to staff at this point that we monitor or even, let's say, project the impacts from other initiatives such as the regional lane reductions. Look at it through that lens, and if we believe either through that monitoring or through our projection that perhaps a stop sign may be warranted in one of those two locations, then we can bring forward a bylaw for council consideration for that specific stop sign. That's what I would suggest at this point, if that's appropriate or suitable. Thank you.
That seems to be a good idea, just giving context. The region of Waterloo will be discussing those closures, which may or may not happen on this Wednesday night. The requirements to get the barrels on that means they will not be implemented until August. We have a council meeting in July. We have a council meeting in August. That gives probably the right amount of time for staff to come up with a plan, and for us, if we needed, through the clerk, to prepare one item in the bylaw for the new stop signs. So I'll turn it back to Councillor Bonagor for thoughts.
That sounds fantastic. I would very much appreciate it if we move forward, and I would give direction to staff in exactly the manner Commissioner Rapp outlined. My final question is more broadly. This is a really great combination of proposals that staff have brought forward. I'm already receiving requests from other businesses in other parts of the core that are asking about whether or not their part of the street could be closed. I'm just wondering if businesses would like to advocate for that. Can they still go ahead with that advocacy separately from this effort?
Through you, Mayor Jaworski, to Councillor Bonagor, my suggestion would be that they would use the Engage Waterloo when we ask for feedback and comments. And then what we will do is take all of that back and use that in a report back. So I would be hesitant to keep adding more streets just because we're pretty much at capacity right now. However, we are definitely wanting all comments and feedback from all homeowners and business owners on the pilots and testing that we're doing.
Okay, that's duly noted and very helpful. That is the end of my long list of questions and comments from staff. So thank you very much for all of your work, and I will hand it back to you, Mayor.
Yeah, so what we're going to do is just to keep track of all these things as we go, since we're all doing this via the teleconference. What we're going to do is we had two directions to staff. One was to implement Waterloo Street as a slow street, as described by Mr. Rapp in, I think, more to the town line, city line. And then to monitor Dietz Ave with respect to traffic calming and potential stop signs in advance of the temporary bike lanes that may be implemented by the region of Waterloo. So it's moved by Councillor Bonagor, who probably wants to vote for that too.
Oui, merci. This is Councillor Bonagor. I vote in favor of those.
And we'll go to Ward 1 to second and go around the table.
Councillor Hanmer, I second the motion and I vote in favor.
Sorry.
Point of order, Mayor.
Yeah.
Point of order, Mayor. You've started moving the report, and there's still several people with questions on it on your list.
No, we're not moving the report. We're only moving the two directions to staff of Councillor Bonagor. Just those two items of adding Waterloo Street and Dietz Street for staff to look at. So just those two items.
Second point of order, Mayor. There may be other aspects to staff direction that we'll want to include, and I'm just thinking it's worthwhile to wait.
Well, it's the clerk and I were having discussions on the side here, and just we're going to try and figure out a way to keep track of it. So, okay. We will. What we're going to do is we're going to wait and put them all together, assuming there are others, because I think what you're indicating, Councillor Freeman, there might be more work, and then that might not get done if it comes later on in the conversation. Is that what you're pointing out, Councillor Freeman?
I think that's dead on.
Okay, so what we're going to do is just halt that direction, staff. We'll save it for later. We'll continue on with questions. Thank you, Councillor Bonagor. Next up on my list is Councillor Freeman, Bodley, Vasic v. Henry.
Thank you, Mayor Jaworski. Through you to staff, like others, I want to thank you again for all the work you've done on this report. Certainly, we've done a lot of work in Eastbridge with regard to understanding traffic flows. But one of the other neighborhoods in my ward where we've done a tremendous amount of research and we have an awful lot of data is Old Abbey. And in particular, we have a lot of data as it relates to Old Abbey, the street itself, and Sandringham, which are they're quite full of cut-through traffic primarily because of the roundabout that exists at Old Abbey and Davenport Road that allows access through Conestoga Mall and onto the expressway. It's an interesting conundrum because essentially people use Conestoga Mall as a through street when it's actually private property. There have been like numerous requests for those areas to be signed 40 kilometers, and I would very much like staff to look at the Old Abbey neighborhood because there's only a very few entrances into that neighborhood, namely Hallmark, where we have Kids Ability. So we have a a school with at-risk families, Old Abbey, Whistler Road, and that's it. Those are the only 3 entrances into the Old Abbey neighborhood, and it makes sense to me that we should be able to consider speed reductions in that area. And they have been very purposeful in their comments to the city for the last 5 years. I'd also like to ask a question, and I'll ask forgiveness of Councillor Vasic. I'm not sure because she wasn't on this Facebook feed that came through on the Eastbridge Facebook site, but there's a lot of folks that are asking that Dunvegan be included in the zone. We've listed Sandringham and Braymore, but the reality is Dunvegan is the connector to those streets, and an awful lot of vehicles cut through on Dunvegan en route out at Lee and at Lexington Road. And so it seems like we're missing an important link when we exclude Dunvegan in that area. More broadly, I just want to say that I really appreciate the conversation that staff provided as it relates to enforcement. And because I think that people do really value seeing law enforcement within their neighborhoods from a number of perspectives, not only just traffic control, but also just related to an improved sense of well-being when they see traffic and enforcement officers in and around the neighborhood. So I appreciate that those conversations are happening with Waterloo Region Police. So that was my suggestion, Mayor. I realize I'm asking to include one more neighborhood. As I said, it's very limited access to that neighborhood with only 3 entrances, but it's certainly one where they see a tremendous amount of cut-through traffic. If we had to limit it, then I would ask that we limit the signage to Sandringham and Old Abbey at a minimum, and we have a lot of traffic data on those 2 roads to be able to assess speed reductions or potential speed reductions as a result of the new signage. And then the other one was in Councillor Vasic's ward on Dunvegan.
Okay, I'm going to go to Jenny for some further information.
Thank you, Mayor Jaworski. To Councillor Freeman, I just wanted to provide some information on those 4 streets actually in particular. So Old Abbey, we have installed the knockdown signs already on Old Abbey, and so we will be monitoring and putting out traffic counters and continuing to monitor that area. Sandringham, we're going to be putting a center line down that road to try and help with delineating the right-of-way and aiding in some traffic calming. Whistler, I have that on the list to start to collect data this fall, and so we can start to bring that into the neighborhood picture. So those 3 streets they're on our radar for sure, and we will continue to work on them and assess them as needed, as required. For Dunvegan, that is actually on the list for temporary traffic calming for this pilot. So that it already will have some measures implemented on it. We're looking at 2 locations on Dunvegan already to implement temporary traffic calming in the form of speed humps.
Okay, thank you very much. I appreciate that. The challenge with the knockdown signs that exist in Old Abbey, and as much as I appreciate them, they're going to be gone as soon as we need to put a plow on the road, and that's why I thought actually signing them was much better. And with regard to the the traffic calming design installations on Dunvegan. Thank you.
So for clarity, Councillor Freeman, at this point in time, are you satisfied with the existing measures and would save this for a later date if you wish to talk 40 kilometers an hour for Old Abbey?
I really want staff to consider the signage for Old Abbey. That they as a neighborhood, they've been on this since I got elected in 06.
Yeah, for clarity, that is to change the speed limit.
That's correct.
Okay, so back to staff, whether it be Jenny or Cam or Christine, this would require a bylaw change, which we'd have to do today. Do you have comments from staff perspective?
This is Cam. Given there were 3 potential answers through Mayor Jaworski, we're all actually answering Mayor Jaworski. Perhaps similar, because the bylaws are structured already for council. Probably the best thing would be to give direction similar to the 2 intersections that where Council Bonagor was asking us to take a look at the stop sign location potentially. Right. Yeah. Give us direction, and that we can come back with the 40K with a bit of an analysis. It wouldn't just be a simple bylaw. We'd provide some context to it, and we can try and come back with that report for council consideration of the applicability of the 40K on Old Abbey for certain.
Okay, that makes sense, Cam. Thank you. Does that make sense, Councillor Freeman?
Sorry, I'm just getting to the unmute button. Yeah, I would like to see this advance, and so if that's how Mr. Rapp recommends, and I appreciate that.
Yeah, I think this can make a lot of sense. That we're really talking about phase 1, which will get done today, and then we'll have a few takeaways for future for phase 2 direction to staff. Over to
sorry, Mayor. In terms of phase 2, though, I don't want it to be next year. I'm being clear here. Like, I'm talking about this report coming back in the near term.
Mr. Rapp, commentary on that?
Sorry, unmuting. Yes, absolutely. The thought was that as I think Mayor Jaworski knows, there's a couple of council dates coming forward, and we would try and hit one of those for council consideration of that 40K with that bylaw. Probably ideally in July would be my preference.
Excellent. Staff will thank you, Cam. Certainly council will. Over to Councillor Bodley.
Thank you. Like Councillor Bonagor, I'm going to apologize for having a few questions here. Through you, Mayor Jaworski. So I really appreciate all of the work and effort that's gone into this from staff, and I think there's a danger, and we're already sort of seeing it, that no matter what staff comes forward with or came forward with, or it's always going to be some gaps, I guess, that residents, the ward councillor, et cetera, are looking at and saying, you know, what about this area? What about this area? And I don't want to lose sight of the fact that I really do appreciate all the effort that's gone into this. And really, when I look at it from the Ward 2 perspective, I think we have hit the main thoroughfares that I get the most complaints about. Certainly, that's not going to be all of them, but we have hit the main thoroughfares. Simply to add and to piggyback off of the comments that Councillor Bonagor and Councillor Freeman have had, if there's one area of the ward that is missing, in my opinion, and I have commented to Director Kaler about this already, but it would be Sundew Drive from Twin Leaf to Mayapple. And similar to Councillor Freeman, I think we have the data on this already. I'm looking at the data right now that shows that in August of 2019, a traffic study showed that the 85th percentile speed on that road is 62 kilometers an hour in front of a park in a completely residential neighborhood. So I would like to provide similar direction to staff that Councillor Freeman has spoken with, to consider that street in particular to be signed at a lower speed limit. I won't get too greedy, and I'll leave it at that, just that one. But there are others that I hope maybe in maybe not phase 2, but a phase 3 consideration that we might be looking at pending the success of the pilot. So
absolutely. Just for clarity, Councillor Bodley, sundew from where to where?
Sundew from Twin Leaf to Mayapple.
Thank you.
Yes, sorry. I think I had to step aside for a brief second, so I believe that I came in at the end of the comment, so I apologize if this is a repeat, but maybe I'm going to start with this. Can we get an update on where the joint service initiative between the City of Waterloo and the City of Kitchener is on the review of speed limits throughout neighborhoods in general? When is the anticipation of that report due to come back to Kitchener and Waterloo councils?
I'll see if Jenny has that information, because it could be Adam who's working on that. Jenny?
Through you, Mayor Jaworski, to Councillor Bodley. Actually, I don't have that information right now, and I will have to get back to you on that one.
Mayor Jaworski, it's Cam.
Oh, yeah.
I might be able to provide a little bit of more input. It's not necessarily related to the joint initiatives, but for the City of Waterloo, we are taking a look at the final of the Transportation Master Plan update, where we have asked the consultant to take a look at the concept of the 40K citywide or approaches, as well as the 30K, which I know has been out there amongst some members of the community. So when we do plan on going to council for one more public session, if you will, or kick at the can for the final update, and then we will come back with the final report. And with that, there should be some either recommendations or comments around the 40 or even the 30K. And then we will await to see what Kitchener does, or we can decide to move on our own as well. Thank you.
Thank you. So just as a follow-up, so do we have an anticipated sort of, I'm not going to hold you to it, but rough timeline of when we might anticipate that happening?
I believe we've already requested a date from the clerk's department for the next council meeting dealing with the Transportation Master Plan update. I apologize, I can't recall what that date might be, but I believe we've already requested it. And then dependent on council direction or acceptance of sort of that penultimate, if you will, the second from the end paper or information, then that would determine when we can come back to council with the file. But again, we'd want to wait to see what input we receive from council and or the public before we would pick a date for the actual final.
Excellent, thank you for that. So I guess to tie this, I'm going to get to the 30-kilometer question, I guess. But to tie this together, is there any is the intention of some of these neighborhood-specific pilots to collect data and to collect public feedback on those pilots to inform the TMP and potential lower speed limit discussion?
Through you, Mayor Jaworski, to Councillor Bodley, yes, that is part of this pilot, is to collect the data and the feedback and then report back to council on our findings and our recommendations.
Excellent. So then I guess the last piece I have on this one, and then I have one other separate question, is given that we're trying to do this as a pilot, and given that there has been interest from at least one, and I believe more than one councillor, to explore the idea of a 30-kilometer an hour speed limit on neighborhood streets, trying to understand, I guess, the consideration for the, or lack of consideration, it would appear, for having one of those neighborhood zones in particular be signed at 30 kilometers an hour, so that we could compare and contrast and look at that, particularly noting that the chances of survival of getting hit at 30 kilometers an hour are 9 in 10 versus 7 in 10 at 40 kilometers an hour, which is really what we're talking about here at the end of the day, given that we've got more pedestrians on the street and more requirement for physical distancing. I'm wondering, A, if there was consideration for one of those zones to be 30 kilometers an hour, and B, if that's something that we could implement today. And just lastly on this, I recognize that these are not, it's easy for me to say because these are not being considered in my ward. So I would defer to the ward councillors to comment on that if it is something that we could consider today.
I'll go to Commissioner Rapp on this one, since it's a higher level discussion.
Certainly. Thank you, Mayor Jaworski, to Councillor Bodley and all of council. We've not really put forward, we've not put forward any 30K zones in the city at this point. We're trying to advance the concept of lower speeds in Waterloo through certain tests. Some of the 40K, the slow streets, the knockdown signs, the speed humps, different things, a lot of different initiatives, and we want to monitor the effectiveness of them, as well as the public's appetite for these things. I think we all know that compliance is more effective than enforcement. And so that ties to the public's appetite that I mentioned. That 30K might be pushing the envelope. And I'm concerned, to be honest, about the tipping point, again, from that compliance perspective. We're doing, as I know, we're doing a lot of initiatives all at once. And so I don't even want to suggest take baby steps, because I don't think to do the things we're proposing for council, which affects over 140 streets, is baby steps. It's significant steps, but again, it's trying to advance the concept of lower speeds to the community as a whole, and to get their buy-in and to understand that it's not that difficult, nor is it that onerous or time consuming to go through this type of these type of approaches, if you will. I'd like to take a look at the recommendations and the comments that come out of the Transportation Master Plan as it relates to the 30K, and the finding of some of these initiatives that we've put forward before I would want to recommend a change to 30K in almost any part of the city. That's just my thoughts right up front, Councillor Bodley, and to the rest of council.
And to Councillor Bodley, the next council meeting on July 13th will have the Transportation Master Plan updates. That's probably another good point to ask for further information on that. Just a thought.
Mute button. Sorry. Thank you. Thank you to both Mayor Jaworski and Commissioner Rapp on that. I guess I'm going to repurpose this as a question. I would hate to see I would hate to see us get to a point during the Transportation Master Plan conversations that council is debating and discussing a potential for reducing speed limits to 30 kilometers an hour, and one of the I guess things that comes back to us is that we've never tried it before, and we don't know if we could get compliance. I really, really appreciate that quote that you provided, Cam. Compliance is more effective than enforcement. That's really great, and I agree with that. And I guess I'm really just looking at this proposal as the opportunity to see whether or not we could get compliance at 30 kilometers an hour. So I would like to, I mildly defer to the ward councillors where these are being considered, because I think it really would need to be done if we were to consider it on a neighborhood basis. And so I will defer to Councillor Hanmer and Councillor Freeman to advise if they have any thoughts as well about going to a 30-kilometer zone in one of their zones, because I really do think now is the time for us to consider this. But I'll set that aside for now and go on to my last question, if I may. This is a question that ties around with the comments from Councillor Bonagor about other streets in the uptown, businesses potentially looking at closing other streets. I just want clarification, I guess. Based on the proposal that we approved last week at council, if a number of businesses, say on Princess Street, were to come forward with a proposal to take over the street, we would consider that through that motion that we passed last week. Is that correct, or am I missing that?
Well, I actually asked the exact question to Mr. Rapp on Friday, and so I'll ask him to repeat his answer.
I wish you could, this is Cam, I wish you could repeat my answer for me. But
I think it was the answer at the time was the fact that road closures are a matter for the municipality operationally rather than council, so it would not take a direction of council to do that.
Correct. That's all it would take, would be a direction of council for clarification. We would not need no to. Bylaw. That's right. Yeah. And actually, staff has the authority to close streets on our own without council direction. We're providing this information to council because it is a significant impact, and it's not related to our operations as to why we're closing, say, Willis Way as an example. But absolutely, Mayor, you're correct. And the discussion we had on Friday is that closure of whether it's Princess Street or a different street for various reasons, and it could be where all the storekeepers want to, or merchants want to close it for certain hours of the day or for a day, that can come in the form of direction to staff, and we can do that. We do not need to pass bylaws for those type of initiatives.
Excellent. Thank you. Yeah, thank you.
I did talk to the BIA about it as well. I think this was new information that was emerging on social media, so I think it just needs some further investigation from the BIA or local merchants or something like that. Over to you, Councillor Bodley.
No, that's it. I just wanted clarification on that, so I appreciate that. Thank you very much. And I will look to Mayor Jaworski and or Councillor Freeman, Councillor Hammer to see if anybody else would be interested in taking up my comments on one of those zones.
Yeah, and I think what we're going to do is we're going to continue through the report, or continue through the people who have their hands up, and then we'll come back and see if we need to do any cleanup on what you're talking about. You're talking about 30 kilometers an hour, Councillor Bodley?
Yep, that makes perfect sense to me. Thank you, Mayor Jaworski.
Okay, Councillor Vasic, Veith, and Henry. And I know Councillor Henry wants to do wrap-up, so we might have to come back to you a bit later. But we'll go Councillor Vasic, Councillor Veith.
Okay, thanks. Through you, Mayor Jaworski. I'm really excited to see this coming forward. One thing I haven't already asked staff is about school zones. Are there any school zones, Jenny, being considered as a slow street in any of the proposals coming forward?
Through you, Mayor Jaworski, to Councillor Vasic. We have Roslyn Avenue, or as one of the slow streets. We also have some knockdowns in front of our Lady of Lords. But I believe that is the only one for a slow street.
Okay, so I'm going to add in whatever list, whoever is creating it, a consideration for Pastern Trail to get considered for something. I think a slow street would be great, but I'm also not the transportation expert. I've been working with the people on Pastern Trail and the school like right from the get-go, and there's huge concerns with both traffic speeds as well as just lack of kind of consideration for pedestrians, homeowners, just kind of everyone. So I'd really love to see that something happen there. And I know that the residents would as well. And I believe it's also a red zone, but you could check that out with enforcement for getting enforcement calls. So yeah, Yeah, may I add that to the list?
Yeah, let's go to Jenny for comment to see what's up with Pasture and Trail, and I will note that I think some councils have noted like Sir Edgar Bauer schools on Glen Forest and the 2 schools in Westville are also in the 40K reduction. So there are some other things that are happening in and around schools, but I think those schools would have already had 40s around them. But over to you, Jenny.
Yes, thank you. So through the chair to Councillor Vasek, yes, as a clarification, I was just speaking to slow streets specifically, not the 40K for school areas, school zones. There are a few other schools that are in the area with the 40K reduction. For Pasture and Trail, we do have Auburn, the entire stretch of Auburn that we will be reducing to 40 kilometers an hour. But I would defer to staff direction for anything additional on Pasture and Trail.
Yeah, so back to you, Councillor Vasek. Any particular thoughts, or just that Pasture and Trail will be looked at for traffic calming, and then we'll go back to staff, just make sure we have it right?
Yes, please. The context between Auburn and Pasture, and I think, is quite different. So people in Auburn are thrilled, by the way, who have reached out to me about this. So thank you so much for Auburn, especially because it's the whole stretch. I think some people were worried that it was only going up to, and I also got that wrong initially, up to University where Freshco is, but that it's the whole stretch is I think a huge win for the neighborhood. But yeah, the context on Pasture is different. And so I'd really appreciate to see that moved forward as a direction to implement, try out something you think would fit best there as a pilot.
So more like what we talked about, Dietz, is to investigate further and but quickly, and to come back to us soon. Now, Pasture and Trail, how long is that? Is there a scope of it, or is it that short that it's you're just talking about Pasture and Trail in general, Councillor Bassett?
Yeah, I mean, I think just primarily it spans kind of like Auburn. I'm looking at Google Maps to find the specific kind of stretch that I'm talking about, because it goes south of University too. So not to say that they wouldn't also want it, but I'm thinking especially in front of St. Matthew's School. So, but if the whole stretch kind of from Auburn to University were considered for something, I think that would be a really great start, because who I've been talking to and meeting with are really families who live in front of St. Matthew's. So, but if you were to find that the entire of Pasture and Trail really needed it, and we just did the parallel Auburn and Pasture, and I mean, sweet, go for it.
Yeah, I see. Okay, I pulled up Google Maps now. I see what you're talking about in terms of Pasture and Trail right by the school. So let's take it as that for looking at. Mr. Rapp, you have commentary?
Through the chair to Councillor Vasek, probably the quickest way of dealing with something, and again on a temporary nature to test, if you will, would be to make Pasture and Trail a slow street. Again, it wouldn't take a bylaw. It would be simple direction, similar to a couple of the other streets that we've talked about, that we could make it a slow street, and then we would have running parallel to each other, basically north-south within that district, a 40K, and then we've got one slow street, and see which one's working best.
And
yeah.
for clarity for me, is it Auburn? Are we doing the entire stretch of Auburn, or just one side of University Ave? And that's maybe
we are doing. Sorry. We are doing almost all of. Actually, it is all of Auburn, from University all the way down to Pasture and Trail, which crosses over University Avenue, basically almost to city limits, but not quite.
Okay. And I do note that Pasture and Trail is quite long. So between Councillor Vasek and Mr. Rapp, were you suggesting the whole of Pasture and Trail?
Like I said, like if that seems to make sense and it's not a ton of extra effort, then I'd be interested in that. But the main concerns have come from families who live between Auburn and, my computer has totally gone here, but Auburn and University. So that's the primary concern. But yeah, if it can extend, great.
Okay, well, let's go to Jenny, the expert. What thoughts do you have, Jenny?
Through you, Mayor Jaworski, to Councillor Vasic. I'm going to echo Commissioner Rapp's comments about the staff direction and going forward. If we keep them to shorter blocks, slow streets are a little bit easier for us to install and manage. I'd like to go out and have a look at the cross section and have a look at the data just to ensure that it will be something that is reasonable and feasible.
Okay, so yeah. So why don't we leave it in your capable hands, Jenny? That we're going to suggest Pastern Trail. You know the priority area is going to be by the school, but if you're out looking about and you think that the other areas should be done as well, we'll wait to hear from you in the next time we come back to council. So we'll give that the direction. Put it on the list as well.
Great, thank you. That sounds awesome to me. I have a few other spots too. But I have a document that I think I'm going to send to staff. So Pastern is really like the key one I think I need to talk about. And then there's a few other areas I'd like to do some background chatting with you about it first. So I might just do that offline to start. And then my second question is, and I only have two unless there are follow-ups, but it's probably more of a finance question. So for the most part, I've had people reach out to me. So appreciative and glad to be seeing what's coming forward. Traffic calming is no doubt the top issue and has been for the last 2 years that people have talked to me about. And I am a full supporter of robustly financing community services and supporting infrastructure improvements, especially active transportation for pedestrians and cyclists. And just a side note, some pedestrians are feeling left out a little bit. So even though the bike lanes will hopefully open up safer spaces on trails and sidewalks for cyclists, just a note to say that pedestrians want to hear more about how we're also supporting them. They sometimes feel as though cycling gets all the buzz, even though pedestrians aren't necessarily forgotten. It's felt that way. And so okay, back to my finance question, which a couple people did reach out saying they don't support this, and primarily for wanting to make sure that because of the financial pressures from COVID, that we're not spending on things that aren't necessary. And while I do see this as necessary, and the majority of people have reached out to me feel the same way too, I also appreciate that the anxiety that's coming with COVID and finances. But as an individual myself in our household, where we have a pretty good cushion for our age and we spend within our means, we've also had a financial hit from this time. So I appreciate the concerns on the household level as well. So yeah, just hoping maybe Commissioner, you can speak, Commissioner Patel, you can speak a little bit to the cushion that the city does have, and if there are any red flags financially about this project.
Through you, Mayor Jaworski, to Councillor Vasic, this is Kashmir Patel here. So yes, Councillor Vasic did raise some very interesting questions with respect to this particular report and the fact that some of the expenses that we are encountering for those capital projects were not known at the time that we were doing the capital budget. But the reassurance that I can provide is that when it comes to making the decisions, finance staff are always working with very sound financial models. And so we take a look at these items, take a look at what the impact is going to be on the model, make sure that we have some funding in place. So whether it is looking at our asset management plan, which in itself looked at the capital needs over the longer term, forecasted what the needs were. So when we are looking at using the infrastructure money, we're making sure that these are items that are in the asset management plan where we have, through the subject matter experts, already documented the need for it. So that is the first step. The other checkpoint that we have is our long-term financial plan also has looked at it from a 25-year outlook perspective. We have made certain assumptions and taken a look as to what our tax rate would be if we had to address all of these things for the next 25 years. So we have a touch point with our 25-year long-term financial plan. So there are various touch points that we have. When it comes to looking at water and sanitary sewer too, there's a model that is updated every single year. So much though these capital projects were not known at the time that the capital model was done for the budget of 2020, we will be updating it for the next year. Right now, we do know that we are able to afford it because the policies that we have with respect to our reserves always provide a certain minimum balance. So there is always a cushion in there. Stormwater, on the other hand, is relatively new. So maybe in that area, we may have to do some debt financing. So this is a thought process that finance has already gone through in looking at this report and in understanding what the financial strategy would be. So to reassure council, yes, these were items that were not known in the budget at that time, but we will be bringing it forward in the next water rate report. And we are quite confident that we will be having enough money in the water and sanitary reserve and stormwater if we need to issue debt. These are long-term capital projects, so we would certainly consider that. So it's not something of particular concern at this time from a finance standpoint. Back to you, Mayor.
And I see Commissioner Rapp has his hand up.
Certainly, Mayor Jaworski, through you to Councillor Vasic, getting a little bit more specific on what's in front of council with these actual initiatives and the funding. We are utilizing the $500,000 that council did approve for the implementation of the Transportation Master Plan. We will be pulling from that account. It's referenced, I think, 717 in the capital budget. So, and it won't come close to hitting the $500,000, but most of these initiatives, I believe, can be tied to the Transportation Master Plan update. It is appropriate. We did, when we put forward that $500,000, we did not know what initiatives would be coming out of the Transportation Master Plan, and we still don't. We've got drafts of the plan, but we did anticipate, obviously, there would be costs. So we will be pulling from that. So it's no additional funding pressures, if you will, Councillor Vasic, than what has already been approved. And it is in the capital budget, and it is not related to operating, which the pressures are greater on the operating side. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you so much, both.
Did you have one more question? Was that?
Nope.
Oh, it is. Okay,
that was
thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you. So we now have Pastor and Trail on the staff direction list as well. Over to Councillor Veith.
Thank you, through you, Mayor Jaworski. I just want to say that I am blown away by all this conversation about 40 zones, because back in the day when I was first getting this gig, to even talk about a 40 zone in front of a school was such a big deal and a big ordeal and a big change for the community, that this is amazing to me. So, and I appreciate Commissioner Rapp's comments about let's go with the 40K. I can't even, I can't even imagine 30. But anyway, I'm just so excited that staff has pulled this together so quickly, that our transportation master plan is so great, and we have a council and a community actually that supports this kind of change in our community. So, and I didn't have another street. I'm really happy with what staff has proposed for Ward 3, but I would like to add one more street to consider, and that would be Cedar Brae. Cedar Brae Public Schools already a 40, and I'm really happy that Glen Forest Boulevard will be taken down to 40. I think, and that the school's on there, and I think that'll go a long way. So if again, thank you so much. This is great conversation, and yeah, so a staff could just take a look at Cedar Brae Street in Ward 3. That would be awesome. So thank you so much. That's it.
Thank you. And does Cedar Brae cross Parkside, or is that a different name on the outside? Like you're really talking about the area that's centered by Sunnydale, right? Glen Forest to Parkside.
Cedar Brae, yeah. Cedar Brae goes from Glen Forest up to Parkside.
I think it crosses.
It crosses. It's a short little bit across, but it changes names. Yeah.
Oh, it does. Okay, good enough. Any commentary from Jenny on that one?
through you, Mayor Jaworski, to Councillor Veith, no comment, just as per staff direction at the end.
Yep. Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much, Councillor Veith. I think Councillor Hanmer had something else she wanted to bring up, and then I'll go to Councillor Henry to wrap us up. Councillor Hanmer, did you have something other than the one typo you found?
There's two typos, and as long as we deal with that, that's fine. Thank you. No, my comment was back to Councillor Bodley's request for comments from the ward councillors that have the major neighborhood areas. So I just wanted to echo that I really appreciate Commissioner Rapp's comments that we really do need to focus on the compliance piece first. And if we can achieve through the reductions that are being proposed now, checking out the 40, how do we make sure that we get better compliance with the changes? I think that's a good first step for us to do. We are putting a big emphasis on the safety of residents in and around the schools for sure, but in and around our neighborhoods. If we could get compliance throughout the Westvale area and Eastbridge as we're looking at the neighborhoods on 40, I think we will learn a lot, and I think that's a good direction for us to go at this point.
And just for clarity on the typos that you found, Councillor Hanmer, are you able to read them out now? I found one, but I kind of lost track of it.
I can too. They are on the chart that has adding to Schedule 17.
Oh.
If you go down to Bonavista Drive, it goes from Eastbridge Boulevard, all of Eastbridge Boulevard. There are no kilometers listed beside it, and I'm presuming it should be 40. And then if you continue down in the same chart and you get to Grand Banks Drive, same thing. There's no kilometers indicated.
Okay, so Jenny will note that for the list. Thank you very much for your eagle eyes on this.
Oh my goodness, thank you. And I too echo the comments about staff pulling this together. I think this overall, the whole approach right now is one that's going very well in helping us look at how we're protecting residents within our areas, pedestrians, and any mode of transportation with slower speeds. Thank you.
Yeah, and I would echo your comments, although I'm not a ward councillor, but 30 kilometers an hour is great if people are actually driving it, and I'd really hate for some people to be pedestrians expecting everybody driving 30 when in fact they're driving the old 50 or, as we know, 60 on those streets. I think we probably need some time to get people used to driving more appropriately on our streets at this time. And at this time, I see no other hands up for second round. So I'll ask Councillor Henry to take us home.
Sure. Before I do, I just wanted to check to see if Councillor Freeman had any interest in replying to Councillor Bodley's suggestion.
Did I miss that? Sorry. Councillor Freeman.
Thank you. Through you, Mayor Jaworski, and thank you, Councillor Henry. I was just typing in that I would make a comment once the motions move, but I'm happy to make it ahead of time. I'm okay to wait with regard to better understanding the 30 kilometers an hour, but I am signaling that I'm expecting the transportation master plan to provide some very thorough information as it relates to speed limits and what's happening more broadly around the world related to active transportation and the sharing of our transportation corridors, because without a doubt, when I was in Dublin at the Velo City, like the European Cycling Conference, they said most municipalities in Europe are using 30 kilometers within neighborhood streets because they believe that that is the appropriate number. I don't think it's right that people travel in excess of the speed limits, but they do. And so in Europe, the information that was being provided suggested that when it's sign 30, those that choose to practice exceeding the speed limit, they do so at a lesser rate. So that was my primary comment on that. And I had a question of process, Mayor Jaworski, because I think we've gone around the horn, except for Councillor Henry, with regard to adding to the direction to staff. So I just wanted to get an understanding. Are we going to vote on the direction and then vote on the whole motion? Or are we going to include the direction within the motion? It would be helpful to get clarity on that when the time comes. And I also was, I guess, a quick question that came to mind when we were talking about when we drop the speed limit to 40 within neighborhoods, and we already have a school in that neighborhood, as is in the case of Eastbridge, there's 3 elementary schools that reside within the new to be 40K zone. If we approve this, does that mean the school zones drop to 30? I just didn't know.
Sure, thank you. Sorry, through you, Mayor, to Councillor Freeman. They remain at 40 for now, unless we have a direction after today's meeting to do any 30K piloting in the 2 neighborhoods being Eastbridge and Westvale. And then those schools would drop to 30 if that's a direction, but we don't have it as of today.
If I could follow up. It would be my preference to see those school zones drop down to 30. And the reason is because I do still think there needs to be a speed change that resides within and around the schools. I'm not 100% confident how Councillor Hanmer feels about that, but I would really like to see that happen. And yes, Councillor Veith is right. When she first raised this about 10 years ago, it just seemed so far-fetched at the time. And I'm glad that we've come to a different place.
So to answer your question on the direction of staff, we are going to do that one separately, just to keep it clean, because we have a nice fulsome report here, as well as the additions from our councillors. I do have 2 hands up here, and what I might go is to Councillor Hanmer to talk about what you just heard from Councillor Freeman, and then to Councillor Bodley on 30 kilometers an hour. Go ahead, Councillor Hanmer.
Thank you, Mayor Jaworski. Through you, I would also support the school zones going down to 30 kilometers in the neighborhoods, and so it would be within the Westvale area. There are 2 elementary schools, so it does make sense. There needs to be a differentiation between the rest of the neighborhood and the school zone, so that there is a slowing down. So I would support that direction to staff. That's it for me.
Testing the sound, if you can let me know if you hear this.
I can hear you, yes.
Yes. Yes, sound just came back.
Okay, the herb room has just temporarily lost power, so let's take a 5-minute recess. If everyone wants to stay on the line, we'll be back in 5 minutes.